And welcome to Life Support Live, the one and only weekly live Star Trek show that explores how we can boldly go in our own lives, better ourselves, and the rest of humanity.
Wow, that is just exactly the same thing that a famous Starship commander once said.
Really?
And you know, Ollie, another one once said that wherever our mission takes us, we'll try to have a little fun along the way.
Just a little. Just a little. Hello, everyone. I am psychologist Dr. Ali Matu.
And I'm Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek. One of us is a real doctor.
And we will leave it to you to figure out who that might be. Everyone! Today's episode, inspired by the season finale of Lower Decks, we're going to be talking about thinking outside of the box. Thinking outside of convention, creativity. It's going to be a fun one. We're going to have a creative, fun time. So let us know in the comments, what is your favorite Star Trek story that involved a real creative solution, some out-of-the-box thinking? But before we get to that, Larry, what is this intrepid enterprise that we are on right now? What is Life Support Live?
I would say I saw what you did there, but it felt like I got run over by an Argo van or something.
You don't want that to happen.
That was pretty. It was kind of on the nose, as we say. Yeah. No, hey everybody, welcome. If you are new to Life Support Live, thank you for joining us. And of course, if you're one of our lifers, you know what to do. But if you are new, we're going to talk about some aspect of daily life that's been inspired by Star Trek. Maybe we could get some tips from the real doctor and maybe you can geek out, hopefully led by me and the real doctor. We do this every week at this time. It's posted. The old ones are posted. They're not old. They're timeless. They're evergreen.
It's time distorted episodes.
Right.
Are available for streaming.
Some of them are even time capsules because we might let the real world drift in. But no, we have a lot of fun every week. We geek out on Star Trek, but we do it with a purpose. So hopefully everybody, surreptitiously, maybe even learns something along the way. We're having a lot of fun. And we always have a theme. And lately we've been doing the themes of the live shows as they come out. So we have fun. Everybody in the chat seems to have a good time. You may even pick up the unofficial rules of the show as you go along. We have no responsibility on that. No legal liability on that. Except it is on some of our items we have in our store. But other than that, I have no legal liability for it.
Well, Larry, we already got a lot of great suggestions coming in from our community, so I'm excited to kind of dive into those. So let's open up that. That's not open up the briefing room. We enter the briefing room.
We did.
This is the part of the show where we.
I have a little bitty. I have a model of the briefing room, and sometimes I go and open it up. But yes, otherwise we can enter the.
I feel like you might. If anyone has a model of the briefing room, it might be you. This is the part of the show where we explore the canon and we explore stories related to this theme. And maybe we start with the inspiration here. Today's inspiration for this episode really comes from the season finale of Lower Decks. Now, we don't want to ruin the episode for folks, but let's just say we get there's a creative solution that involves a new view of the Cerritos that we have not seen before. A little bit of a risque view of the Cerritos, if I might say so myself.
I don't know if you're familiar with classic comedy movies. I just saw that again and thought, Joy, have you ever seen a grown starship naked? Yes, airplane. Okay.
So this is the Cerritos with her outer hull removed, which was really quite the sight to see. We haven't really seen that with the Starship before. Not only was
especially outside battle.
Yeah, right. It was especially without it being torn apart by some other entity.
Gaping holes.
And Larry, for the Starship aficionados out there, we also got a sort of a successor to the Excelsior class. Probably my second favorite Starship class in Star Trek, after good old 1701. And that was quite the design to behold. But anyways, this is not Starship Support Live. This is Life Support Live.
There's 3 or 4 good pods on that already. So.
Yeah,
and a couple of stinkers, but they're all out there already.
We won't talk about the stickers here. What you and I both were attracted to in terms of a show theme this week was the way that the crew came together and created this very novel solution. This very much out of the box solution to this crisis that was unfolding, and this seems to be just such a wonderful staple of Star Trek. There are so many examples of.
Well, I was going to say, sometimes, as with these themes we come up with, it's kind of like, well, that's every episode. Like, that's drama,
Right.
and that's sci-fi drama, and that's Star Trek sci-fi drama. But even saying that, sometimes they're really even more out of the box. And you know what? As I got to thinking about this, and as I was bleary-eyed last night, coming up with after our, that insanely long conference we had on this episode, I was coming up with some ideas. And a lot of times, this is where sometimes, we had high drama and really creativity and go, oh my God, astounding things happen, like Strip the Ship. That was kind of amazing. But this is also where we get some of the comedy shows, because something
Right.
goes a little crazy. But crazy, if weird is part of the job, crazy is part of the job too. And some of the comedy moments, if they're honest comedy, they come out of a really out of the box solution, and it works, and maybe it's even played for a laugh, but it works in the guise of Star Trek, and yay for Star Trek being diverse enough to take a little. We're big enough to take a little comedy.
A
Sometimes.
little comedy is. I don't know where I was going with that. It's too early for my impressions.
So the fact that we could sit here and come up with 800 different occasions
Yeah.
when something thought out of the box.
Yeah.
But let's think of some of our, really outlandish ones, or the ones that are really, really. It's a tiny box, and you're way out of it. So,
Yeah, and this is something as we get into the counselor's log a little bit later. One of the things we always try to do with Life Support Live is related to the world we're living in, and I think there's a lot of ways in which creativity is difficult right now, and we're going to get into that. And there's a lot of ways in which Star Trek can show us the way to get more creative. I don't know why there was a little Shatner in there. Maybe
Extra
because
box.
there was a little Shatner in the cosmos this week. Maybe that's why.
Extra box is our business.
So, Larry, I just want to dive into just a few examples that are coming from our community, because
Yes.
there's so many good ones here.
Oh, them.
Yeah. So there's a few I want to just kind of dive into. Libby had one of the first examples here.
Oh, that reminds me. I didn't. There was an image I went to go dig for last night, and I didn't. So I know Libby's going to give it to us. But go ahead.
Is it this one? Is it the self-replicating minds?
That's the serious one. But my other thing was the spatulas and cables.
That's exactly what that was. Libby's other example is Rom using a spatula to fix, was it Quark's
Well,
holosuite?
he saved all the main cast lives. It's when they had to have the holosuite buffer take all the full scale, the actual living engrams of everyone, all the holodeck patterns from the runabout explosion, which was the show that wound up being Our Man Bashir, which everybody remembers being a fun thing, but the underlying cause for that was life and death for the whole main cast. So
let's talk about Rom a little bit, because he's a character who consistently shows us a lot of creativity. The self-replicating minds later in the Dominion War arc, which were key to buying the Alpha Quadrant a bit more time against the Dominion.
only save the Alpha and the Beta quadrants from Dominion. That's all.
Who cares about the Beta Quadrant? Let's not worry about the Beta Quadrant. It's the Alpha Quadrant is really where. No, of course, yes, the Alpha and Beta. But also, we see it early on in the series that Quark's Bar is a place where Rom is doing a lot of the engineering. He doesn't have the best resources. He has a lot of limitations on what he can do. It's not a 1701D. It's not a Galaxy class ship with all the resources of the luxurious Galaxy class Hilton conference rooms that you have.
Yeah, don't go there. We're gonna go through that. Okay, yes. Carpet on the walls. Oh my God. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. 17OD all the way. I'm here for it. I want to touch the carpet on the wall. I have a theory for the carpet on the wall, Larry. You want to know the theory?
It was one big counselor's room. That's what. No.
Just in case we ever lose gravity, but you still want that warm, carpety feel at any angle, it's available for you on the 1701. They've thought of everything at Utopia Planitia when they were designing that beautiful bird.
So are you saying that's a luxury or that's a life-saving?
It's a luxury. It is the flagship of the Federation, and every flagship should have carpet on the sides in case you lose gravity. It's
okay. Hey, you kids!
It's science.
It's both.
But this is, Larry, this is one of the things that you and I have talked about often, is some limitations, some parameters can lead to creative solutions. And we see that with Rom over and over again as he's trying to take care of the holosuites and the bar. He has to find a way to make things work with the limitations that he has.
Or the quadrants of the known galaxy. Libby, I hope you appreciate this really big moment for Rom here.
Well, the other thing about Rom too, Larry, is he's coming at things from a very different perspective.
Could say that again. No.
Well, he's not. Okay, so
sibling abuse.
There's that. There's
widowhood
that.
or divorcee. Yeah, well, divorcee, I guess. Yeah.
But okay, if you're in construction, there's permits, there's requirements, there's city requirements and regulations and all that sort of stuff. And I see that similar to Starfleet. Starfleet has codes and protocols and how things have to be wired and done and all that. IC-linear chips need to go at this angle, not that angle. Don't do that. The neuro gel packs have to have a certain pH balance, all that sort of stuff, right? But the thing about Rom is he's not encumbered by all those limitations. He does things a different way, and I think because he has been doing things a different way for so long, he was able to get to a point of suggesting something like the self-replicating minds. O'Brien didn't come up with that. That wasn't Dax. That was someone who has been operating under a different code for a long time.
He was brainwashed by the non-Starfleet way, which is, it comes out of scarcity, it comes out of scramble. Much like the, Star Trek set deck. If I wanted to do a mini K3 factor, it'd be like, I like these Star Trek set decorators over the years. Doing dumpster dives,
I need to have like a sound for these mini K3s, Larry, like a sound effect.
Like Sports AM radio. We're going to be,
Yeah, I have this. That's not a, how about this?
See, like everything else, I couldn't hear it. So.
Oh, you couldn't hear that?
Nope. So
I'll do that.
I have to do the later thing.
I'll do that for the mini K3s. There's a great sound effect that you have no idea what I'm playing, but I will do that.
I'll hear it later.
Anytime you give us a mini K3, what the community is going to hear is this. Okay. All right.
I'm scrolling through the chat now.
And page 2. Okay, let's go through some an example of ours, Larry. And I want, what I want, Larry? I want a piece of the action. That's what I want.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
let's talk about a piece of the action.
And you know what this? Everybody knows what. If you don't know what this is, leave the show. Leave the room.
No gatekeeping at Life Support Live.
I was doorkeeping. There's no gate here. No, this is the Fizbin game from Sigma Iosha 2 with the copycat Iosians from Piece of the Action. And it's Fizbin, and it's one of the most, outside of... people forget this. We talk about comedy. Well, Piece of the Action is number 2 to Triples, I guess. But, yeah, the Fizbin scene is classic, and everybody, it's beloved. And no matter what era of Trek you like, you can't not enjoy this scene. But at the core, it dawns on me that a lot of the comic moments are solutions that may not have been taught in a Starfleet, classroom. If Starfleet can teach a class on the ethics of collecting, however, I think they teach about anything at times. But anyway, but yeah, this is a very out of the box way. This is the one that also reminded me that how many of the comic moments in Star Trek, if they're done well, they are an out of the box thinking. But you're with the gangsters with the guns, and you're expecting a tough guy approach to escape, and Kirk turns on the charm and totally does one of his Kirkisms, which you might even say, if you go down the line, there's a revisionist look at not Shatner, but at Kirk. Over the years, it's gone from Kirk, my gosh, my captain, to Kirk versus Picard, to Kirk versus all the captains, and people keep and oh my God, he's so misogynistic, and with the alien babe of the week, which in memory is a little overblown.
No, it doesn't match up. It's like red shirts. Actually, not that many red shirts actually die. Sorry, folks.
But one of his qualities was, later on he'd get yelled at it in the movies about that talk he gets from Admiral Morrow and Wrath of Khan about you've always stood for or Search for Spock. You've always stood for rational thinking, Jim. It's like, no, he hasn't. By the book procedure protocol. I'm like, you're talking to the Kobayashi Maru guy. Well, that scene made no sense. That's how clueless,
Yeah, let me. If
wasn't an admiral, he was a no clue moral.
Larry, we should probably do a whole episode on Kirk's psychology or something, because I think there's a lot here. One of the things that I always push back upon is when people say Kirk was so emotional, and I kind of want to go back and say like logos, pathos, and ethos. Like logos, the logical one is obviously Spock. Pathos, the emotional one, is obviously Bones. Come on, folks. Bones is the one who is always wearing his emotions on his sleeve. He's always now. I'm not saying he's careless or in that way, but he's emotional in the way he deals with his emotions. He's quite expressive. Spock is not, and Kirk, to me, has always been the integration of the two. Mm-hmm. He always listens to both perspectives. He always integrates both perspectives. He's always trying to mediate both perspectives. Kirk is our aspirational goal here of someone who's able to combine both perspectives. Why can't people understand the simple fact, Larry?
I don't know, Ollie. This 50 years of criticism and fan thought, and this sounds like a pretty radical idea to me. Boy, I've never seen this one proposed anywhere.
It's funny. You're so right. Like all of the womanizing, or the other thing, like to give let's give in Shatner a little love here. The other thing that's been like changed with time is this idea that he's overacting. He shows a lot of restraint, folks. It's if you go back and you watch some of these, like some of the episodes we've done here, we did I was gonna say the Tribbles one, Larry. What the hell is the Tribbles one called?
The one with the Tribbles? Yeah.
What the hell is the
one with the Tribbles and all the trouble?
The trouble with the trouble with Tribbles, right? If you just watch an episode like that is
those obscure ones. I know they're hard to keep up with.
It's just a comedic one, but there's what I think Shatner does so brilliantly is he can play the very small, tender, emotional scenes, but he can also play the other moments for comedy. And I think that's what most of the original series cast does. But he can ham it up when he needs to ham it up for the purposes of the mission. Anyways, I think there's a lot of we should do a whole Kirk episode.
We have a week off next week from there's no new Trek. There's actually a gap between the finale of season finale of this show and Prodigy's startup. There's an off week. So maybe I was going to say we've got a time we can spin the wheel and come up with our own original theme again.
Yeah, I think that would be
or even theme format.
I think that would be
an episode.
I think that would be a lot of fun. And you know what's wild, Larry? I am now starting my daughter as we watch things like Peppa Pig and we watch these shows on Nickelodeon through Paramount Plus. She's now getting ads for Star Trek Prodigy, which to me is like,
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, my daughter is getting ads for a Star Trek series. She is 4 years old, and this is amazing. It is amazing that she's getting ads. What's not amazing is all the Paramount Plus ads. Why am I getting ads when I'm playing for the non-ad version? But whatever.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, people have been asking that since the dawn of time. Now,
Yeah.
it feels like. But no, I'm going to sit down. I have my granddaughter is 5.5, and I'm going to we're going to make a quasi regular thing of sitting down to watch episodes, and I may even record her. Like we may do an after show
Oh, that'd be super
thing
cute.
and something like
That'd
that.
be
Yeah,
super
she's
cute.
she makes her opinions plain. She's pretty well spoken.
You know what's cool is if you want to speak to someone who will tell you the truth, talk to a 5-year-old. They'll tell you how it is. Larry, let's kind of jump forward here. We've got a lot of great examples.
They're not talking out of the box. They're like the box is the whole universe. So they're in us, or they're out of it all the time. Anyway.
So we talked about the original series. Let's go forward a little bit to the Next Generation, and a really famous example here.
Yeah, I think Scott actually had this in the chat, and no, we did not collude on this early. This is one of the first. This is one of the first. This was a famous case. This is so famous it got named
the Picard maneuver.
Yes, before it was this. It was this.
So this was with the Stargazer, the Captain Picard's
tech.
Captain Picard's the first ship he commanded, and in this moment he went to low warp at nearby the other ship, which created this illusion that there were two ships in the same place at the same time. It kind of creates this illusion that the cavalry's here, they're
There's an optical effect, the something effect, or the something whatever. I don't know the name of it, but there's an optical thing. What's that thing where you blur and you kind of think it's the?
I think it's called the
motion picture
warp special effect. I don't know.
No, it's. In organic film, in analog film, it's the idea that when you have enough frames per second go by, you have the illusion of motion.
Yeah,
that has a name.
It does have a name. I should know that, but I do not. It's not parallax. It's I can't remember right now. And it's not persistence of motion. No, but it's like when you have a flip book.
It's not persistence of motion.
I don't know. Okay. I can't remember.
Somebody in the chat will know.
Someone in the chat will know.
Yes.
You can just Google it. So it's like a flip book or an old Zoetrope.
Ooh, look at you, Zoetrope.
Hey, my favorite class in college that I ever took, History of American Film.
That was a good play too.
It was a good play. Yeah. Not as good as History of European Film, but it's still a good play. But yeah, persistence of vision is what Glenn is saying here. Thank you, Glenn, for the
you were right.
checking. Hey, there's something going on to this noggin over here.
You are a real doctor after
all. So what's great about the Picard maneuver is it saved the day, and it
with the Ferengi, yes.
Yeah. And so what actually happened? It was with I'm forgetting the name of the Ferengi who was who Picard was.
It was Bach, wasn't it?
Bach.
Yeah,
that's right. Not the composer, the Ferengi.
Help me, Bach. Okay, no.
Da 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 da. So what? He got confused, right? And he didn't know who was whom. And then what did the Stargazer do? It used the tractor beam, or it fired phasers? What happened next? I forget.
Oh, what does it matter? No, but the point was he was being mentally controlled by the first Ferengi dome we ever saw, and was back. He'd beamed over to the derelict ship, and I mean that's what you're talking about. But in the original encounter, Bach's 50 years before, what was the thing?
That's what I'm wondering. The original.
It's something about Bach's son was one or the other. But anyway, in the 50s, 10 years before, 12 years before, on the Stargazer, they had first encountered Ferengis and didn't know what they were. 100 years after Archer first encountered Ferengis and didn't know what they were. But they had their official first contact then. and stumbled into that encounter. And Picard only got out of it by using the Picard maneuver to look like he was in, not that he was in two places at once, but yeah, that there were two ships suddenly, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
So that
But
was
use of real tech, because it was like you could, if warp drive was a thing, and the whole, you don't go to warp drive in planetary orbit, you don't go to warp drive inside a system, because who knows where you could wind up. It's so close quarter, you could wind up inside a planet or a moon or collided with something.
right.
But they took the risk, and or let's jump 500 yards at warp.
We've all seen Star Wars: The Last Jedi. We know what happens if you misjudge that. And Melanie is right. I did a little Beethoven and called it Bach.
I didn't even realize that's what you were doing to correct.
No, it's I need more coffee. So let's kind of jump forward here. Speaking of Picard, let's talk about another. Let's talk about another creative solution of Picard's, which is different. And this is from Star Trek Picard, and this is actually when they were doing a little bit of.
The Stardust City Jazz or whatever it was.
Yeah. Speaking of Ferengi, we know Quark has a little satellite.
Apparently a whole license. Well, and in Lower Decks too, he has licensed.
Yeah. I'm just waiting to see him again in either Picard or in Lower Decks season 3.
I'm sure Armin is too.
Yeah, I know. But this was a moment where they're impersonating who knows what. They're impersonating.
No, they were rogues and scalawags and pimps and whatever you want to say in the late 21st century. But yeah, in 2399. But yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, Larry, that scene was hard for me to buy.
Really? Was it?
It just was not. I'm like, I didn't believe any of the characters in the character that they were playing. But I did enjoy seeing Patrick Stewart trying to make that work. He was trying to make it so, and
Patrick doing an outrageous French accent.
Yeah. It was quite a thing.
Sharp, alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, it was another case of comedy being the out of the box thinking, but
Sure. Yeah.
But the Picard maneuver was not that. That was a very sober approach to some, and the naked starship porn, the naked starship approach was very very scary, actually, out of the box, very risky.
Yes.
Out of the box.
Yeah, it really was.
We're hopscotching around the series, but there was
We
one
are.
that I was looking, and I was getting tired, and I gave up on it. But I wanted to mention it.
Yeah.
One of the big ones in Enterprise, and Enterprise was about earlier day explorers. So it's like every week feels like it was an out of the box. But one of the really big ones on Enterprise, where there were a couple, but one was where they in Minefield, where they had the mine stuck on the ship, and they finally just detached the hull there.
Oh yeah.
That's where. But then not only that, was when they exploded the mine, they used the hull plate as like a life preserver against the radiation. I mean, it was a blast shield against the radiation. But the other big one is the time when the Columbia and the NX-01 had to transfer.
Yeah.
And they did the spacewalk by tether. Yeah. That was really out of the box.
That was I remember a very suspenseful moment.
And it was cool that they had the CGI. If they tried to do that before, it might have been a little clinkier. But the fact that they had such pretty good CGI by that time and could do it, that it just added to the effect. And I think they felt like going for it. They felt like they
I mean, part of some of those examples from Enterprise
production crew, not the show crew.
Right. Some of those examples that you just shared from Enterprise, they remind me of moments like the Apollo 13 voyage, where they were running into problems with carbon dioxide and had to, the NASA engineers down here on Earth had to figure out how can we create something else that's going to filter out all this CO2, and coming up based
Well,
on the
they had 3 people in the LIM when it was
Yes.
designed for 2, so the
Yes.
scrubbers were overmatched.
Yes. And I think using duct tape and a few other things that they were able to kind of and then they had to teach the astronauts how to do that without any video. They had to describe it all. So
We're waiting on that procedure, Houston.
yeah. Roger, we'll be here shortly.
They rip something. They're like, oh no, we've got another one. Oh, okay. It's like, oh damn, he just ripped the whatever, the carpet bag insert or whatever, the sweepers thing. The great failure was a great example in what they could do if they had to. Their backs against the wall and the ingenuity, the thinking out of the box test not that you want to do it, but if you're going to be there. And it was very it was very white knuckle, and no part along the way, including reentry, did they know that everything was going to be totally safe to get them back. And it was but the whole thing was day one, thinking out of the box constantly, every second of the day for like a week.
And I think Enterprise gets us closest to those types of moments of how do we do this? We have no idea. There is no book. We are exploring the unknown. The next series, maybe that gets us closer to that, is probably DS9, like dealing with the Cardassian tech early on. None of it works. How do we solve this? Voyager maybe had the intention of doing that. We didn't get to see too many of those moments because
as long as Harry Kim was a character, there was always going to be a techie, the tech moment. Hey, one more from Enterprise.
Yeah, please.
Solving the tiny asteroid leak in Shuttlepod 1 was it mashed potatoes? What was it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, something like that. Talk
about your NASA moments. That takes me back to it wasn't a save, but the whole thing of Chuck Yeager in the first time he broke the sound barrier.
Yeah.
The X1, and it wasn't a fix, but him always his routine of asking for a stick of Beemans from his guy as he got in. All of his test flights, it was kind of like a dare the devil kind of. A test pilot is sticking his neck out there every time. And I don't know why I thought of that. It was like,
I don't know why you thought about that either, yeah.
I could see Chuck Yeager taking his Beeman's chewing gum out and sticking it in the whole what they did in Shuttlepod 1. I'm surprised
Yeah.
Gum in, but they didn't want to encourage gum chewing, I guess, in 2002 or something, but Anyway, that was a sidebar. Let's move on.
That was a sidebar. I just noticed, Larry, I've got my Kennedy Space Center mug from STS-125. This was the shuttle launch I went to go see. One of the last launches, the mission to repair the Hubble.
Yeah. Hey, this is on my socials, but tomorrow is Mae Jemison's
Oh my gosh.
And a lot of people remembered this as speaking of Shatner on Blue Horizon.
Yeah.
Or Blue Origin. I keep wanting to call it Blue Horizon.
That was the IMAX documentary about space, right. I think.
Yeah. Well, it was also a song, too, Beyond the Blue Horizon.
Oh, right.
People were pointing out that, in reverse order, Mae Jemison went on a shuttle launch, shuttle flight, and then came back and then played a Starfleet crew person, not Captain Kirk.
She was a transporter officer, I believe. Yeah.
She was a Lieutenant Palmer. She had a name they made sure. And Entertainment Tonight did a story on it. And the show. It was Second Chances. It was the two Rikers.
Yes, I was gonna say. So down
to see her off. It was a big thing. And the best thing of all, I didn't know this till last night. Guess what? She was on the Endeavour. She made one shuttle flight for several days.
Yeah.
And then she left NASA. And did her own private, pro space development and, teaching kids and all that. But guess what her shuttle flight was?
What the mission number was?
Just guess, since I'm bringing it up.
Well, there's no 1701 mission. It could be 171. No, it couldn't be because the shuttle mission ended in the 120s. What was it? It was 47?
Yes, he was on shuttle mission 47. STS
there you
47.
Go. STS 47. That was an early one.
When I saw that. See, learn something new every day, even if it's totally trivial.
That was I was going to guess 47 and then 31. Those were my next two.
Where did 31? Okay.
Section 31 would have been. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
No,
We
it's very
don't talk about 31. No one knows except anyone who's lived during the Star Trek Discovery era. Anyways, so a few more examples. You mentioned Riker, the two Rikers. I just want to mention Thomas Riker. Used a lot of creativity to steal the Defiant. I know this is not the kind of thing we want to encourage, but yeah, ha ha! No one knows. But that was
my makeup person, and I know. Haha.
But there is, I think there's something to be said about not only our heroes, but some of our antagonists. And Thomas Riker, I think, is a wonderful antagonist. He's not a villain, but we can understand some of the reasons that might have led him to that point in time, which is very similar to Boimler. And a bit of his arc in season 2 of Lower Decks. He goes through a similar experience as Thomas Riker does. Let's not forget that like there's. I'm sure that's going to come back to.
You know what? The finale was truly a great show because they didn't. It's funny. Lower Decks. People say that's their favorite, but they also feel good about saying that. A lot of people do because they say it's like it honors every other single Star Trek.
Yeah.
Sometime at some point it puts everybody on an. Well, they go on and on about Spock and they go on and on about some of the others, but they put all the series on an equal pedestal. I mean, they'll go and do an Enterprise as well as they'll do a Next Gen, bit. But the finale was partly great because, and maybe a couple of other late episodes too each season, because they go and they make their own history.
Yeah.
They're not. There is no other skin the ship and we'll go naked, and there is no other.
Yeah.
Am I spoiled? There is no other go to that. Started off as a joke in the technical manual and has bit by bit been brought to life, and they really brought it to life finally.
There be whales here, Captain.
I fell off my chair. Yes. There be 2 whales here.
And there's been debate about
extremely little, sir, but still.
There's been debate about what species those represent, but let's not spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. What a wonderful moment that was.
There's no debate,
based on a very small joke that would never be visible in standard definition TV. But you need to look at your technical manual to kind of get that. What a lovely moment that was, Larry.
It was more than a moment. It was like a third of the ship.
Oh yeah, it was a core part.
And some life saving.
Yeah, it was a core part of the
and
story.
Apparently some urinating. Okay.
There's a few more examples I want to run through from our community that I think are really wonderful here. So Tim mentions Spock and Bones thinking out of the box, how to perform surgery on a torpedo in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. That is a wonderful way of them doing a little bit of what Larry was talking about with Enterprise, using some tech that was really built for a different purpose and realizing that the scientific technology could be used to lock on to the heat signature of the bird of prey, which was a wonderfully creative solution. And also very convenient that they just had that lying around.
Well, it was a big starship. There's a lot of stuff just laying around.
There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Good thing Scotty rolled out that schematic and looked at that schematic earlier.
Because if that'd just been a digital file on a screen, it would have been visible to a lot less people. But when you're going to have old school paper laying,
have the most basic schematic available.
Weight down my coffee cups at the corner.
Charlotte says Janeway often thinks outside the box and then blows it up.
It blows it up.
Nathaniel also mentioned Nog.
And she doesn't need a Veruvian bomb either. Yeah.
Your Janeway cracks me up, Larry.
Oh, Charlie. Yeah. Okay. We watched The Africa Queen just the other day.
Oh my gosh. Nathaniel said Nog choosing Starfleet, which I think that's it's an unconventional decision. Is it a creative decision? I think Nog does some creative things in Starfleet.
It was creative decision for Nog to get himself off that station.
Yeah. We could think about it like that. Yeah, I like that.
I just did too late. Okay.
Charlotte also brings up sort of the opposite here, which I think is a cool perspective. Worf often has trouble thinking outside of the box, both in terms of Starfleet duties and Klingon traditions. I can't help but think it's partly because he's essentially a son of two worlds, so relies on rules and regulations to fit in whatever scenario he's in.
That's a good observation.
Yeah, I think Worf. We see this really well in DS9 when he's around a lot of other Klingons, and the other Klingons are like, "This guy's so uptight. Like, this isn't how Klingons are supposed to have fun. Klingons do not have fun." Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Have you seen the original series? Have you seen DS9? Klingons have a lot of fun. They sing songs a lot.
Yes. We will sing songs of this fun moment.
Yeah. Great songs will be sung of this Mario Kart game. No, they know how to get down, and I think Charlotte, the point here about how he's never quite comfortable with his human upbringing, and he never quite feels Klingon enough. Klingot. Enough. I think that does lead him to be more careful of stepping out of bounds, and the bounds are much tighter for him than they might be for other people.
Right, he doesn't feel the flexibility. I was trying to think having said that way, I know I've intellectually thought about it, but to really wrap myself in that thought, I'm sitting here trying to think of another character that is kind of in that same position, where they're overplaying.
There's no other character that's a child of two worlds in Star Trek.
Yeah, whether it's because of being a child of two worlds or for whatever reason, just anybody who's too much, who's playing the role don't get lost in the part, but for real.
Well, I mean, obviously that's Spock. And
there are times, younger Spock does that.
Well, I would say that even when we see Spock Prime in motion picture, he is making these. Motion picture. I love motion picture.
It's the pivot time, but yeah,
I love motion picture so much
for Spock,
and I will die on that hill of saying how amazing a film motion picture is. I think if you lived in that time and you saw the motion picture, you saw Star Trek on the big screen when you didn't know if Star Trek was going to come back, and what's revealed is it's Voyager that is coming back home when Voyager had just been launched. I mean, whoa. Not to mention the first time
wait. Voyager wasn't launched until 1994, 95.
Wrong. I'm talking about the real one.
Oh,
and the fake real one in the
movie. Voyager 6. Which apparently we're still waiting to launch because we've only launched 2 Voyagers.
Was it Voyager 6 in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, they made sure and give it a gap so in case.
That's a lot of Voyagers.
But that's back when they basically were launching. What's the other one? Voyager and somebody's going to know. Anyway,
not the Mars.
No, there were 2. There were 2 Vikings.
Oh yeah, the Vikings.
The idea was to have 2 prepared, and they would give them a number.
Yeah.
Even the planetary missions, like the Mariners and some of the others, would have. They would come up with a different craft, but it was
Pioneer. Are you thinking of Pioneer?
Pioneer. I am thinking. So there was Pioneer 1 and 2. There was Voyager 1 and 2, but they didn't. It wasn't a program that kept going because they would, have another objective and go with that. So the idea that Voyager 6, like somewhere in the future, it's going to be picked up and they'll be, where happened to the missing Voyager? That's the In Search Of that Leonard Nimoy needs to do or Frakes needs to do the mystery of.
The mystery, yeah.
What happened to Voyager 3, 4, and 5?
Let's see. What we're mentioning real space flight a lot today. Why am I mentioning? Oh, the motion picture. Yeah, I mean we see that with Spock.
Right.
Like he decides not to go through Kolinar by the end of that Kolinarscopy. He decides.
Okay, I'd never heard that before. That's a good one. Yes.
All right, moving right along. Imud. Melanie mentions Imud taking the Alices on a trip through Wonderland. That's pretty good.
Yes, and blowing up Norman's. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And then
Well,
Larry,
a little bird tweeting in the.
there were so many Ferengi examples. Yes, half of them came from Libby, but the Magnificent Ferengi, where Rom points out that they don't have to go in with firepower, they should negotiate. Brilliant move, Rom.
And a forebear of what did Boimler and Rutherford do?
You said it wrong. It's Boimler.
What did I say?
You said Boimler.
Oh, it's Boimler?
Yes.
Okay. No, Boimler and Rutherford negotiating what with just this recent Lower Decks. They negotiated their way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they dealt their way. The Ferengi, whatever would be proud.
Yes, the Grand Nagus.
Yes, the Grand Nagus of the late 24th century would be proud.
Yeah,
might even still be Rom, and Rom might still be the Nagus in Lower Decks time.
Boogie.
It's only what 12, 15 years later.
Yeah, he could totally be the Grand Nagus. Charlotte also mentioned Bones dosing Kirk with drugs to stimulate death in a mock time in order to save his life.
I thought of that, but I just referred to that a few weeks ago, so I didn't want to go.
Right.
And how much restraint was that for me not to pile on?
I know. That's a big Bones moment too. Zahir mentions Geordi and Hollow Dr. Brahms on the holodeck. And that is, they do get to a moment of creative solution after overcoming all the Geordi's awkwardness. Speaking of Geordi, we finally see another. There's like, you have to be very watchful when you're watching Lower Decks because we finally see another character wearing a visor. I forget if it was this week.
There's even two different characters that have had a visor.
We also saw a Starfleet character wearing a hijab in a recent episode.
And what's the Sing head?
A turban.
There's a turban wearing. Apparently,
there's a lot of stuff going on in Lower Decks. You gotta really be on top of it. Tim mentions, I think this is an interesting one. I really do. The Riker maneuver, how to swing your leg. And what a lot of people don't know is the reason Jonathan Frakes does that is because of his back pain. It's actually, I forget if it's because of a car accident, Larry, but Jonathan Frakes experiences a lot of back pain. And if he sits this way, it's a lot easier for him. But it adds so much to the character.
It's like I'll see your unfitting uniform, and raise you. Yeah,
I'll raise you chronic back pain. But it is one of those things that, like his beard, Jonathan Frakes grew out his beard because of the writer's strike, and Gene Roddenberry said,
"Vacation. It's what you do, right? You go on vacation, you go native, and you grow a beard, and you come. But then they were like, no, don't touch it.
It looks nautical. I think is what Gene told him. It looks nautical. A lot of those aspects were not planned. But they sort of they went. It was a bit more improvisation.
I mean, I can't believe Gene broke canon like that. But okay. Nobody in Starfleet. They don't have beards in Starfleet. They're all clean shaven. We've seen that for 100 years. There's been no beards in Starfleet. Where was Twitter in 1988?
Wait.
88. Yeah.
Hold up. McCoy, the motion picture, boy, he's got a beard. Does he shave it?
But he was retired. He was not in service.
Does he shave
it? It the minute he came back.
Oh, then Gene Roddenberry did break canon.
That's it. I'm out of here. If they can't even, if the guy who created the show can't even act like the guy who created the show, then I'm out of here.
Charlotte says there was an engineer in season 1 with a beard. Was he?
That's right.
Was he enlisted, Charlotte?
That's right, Charlotte. Thank you. It was Argyle, Biff Yeager. Yeah, yeah.
They had some weird things in season 1, and some of the characters didn't have any pips, if I remember correctly.
They also had scants in season 1.
Yes. Bring back the scants, Lower Decks. Bring them back.
Kaczynski had a square, which has never been seen before.
Oh, and Libby says Worf had a beard.
But he was Klingon. He also, somebody the other day was griping, why did they let Worf wear his baldric all those years when nobody else got to? But if you notice, Kayshawn is wearing a Temerian thing in Lower Decks when you see Kayshawn, the Temerian.
Mm-hmm.
I thought somebody online was complaining about why Worf got to wear a baldric all those years and, not Starfleet. And somebody said, why did Worf get to wear, oh, that's what it was. They said, why did Ro have to take her earring off, but Worf got to wear his baldric all those years? And then I thought later on, they're letting Kayshawn wear his little Temerian sash with a knife in it. So, yeah, it was just obviously Riker being, a bully to Ro or something. I don't know. Let's move on.
Moving on. Yeah. We have just a few more to kind of I want to share. Nathaniel said Bashir playing the villain to save the crew on the holodeck in Our Man Bashir. A great comment on what heroism means. I love that perspective, Nathaniel. Charlotte singing the praises of Rom. I'm going to skip a lot of the comments that sing the praises of Rom. There's a lot. We love Rom.
We got a choir here today already. So, yeah.
Zahir said Kelvin Kirk in Starfleet in Into Darkness. Kirk, his attention divided. Starfleet, his headquarters saved. Zahir has basically been taking some language classes here. Good for you, Zahir. Nathaniel says, how about Jake giving up on bringing Sisko out of subspace, ending the time loop? Ooh, interesting. We're talking about... The Visitor here.
The Visitor, right?
Yeah.
I see another one. Oh, go ahead, keep going.
Rom also thought outside the Ferengi box when he formed his union. Gosh, so much love for Rom. We get it. After O'Brien, he's the most important character in all of Star Trek history. Okay. We get it.
I guess we really should just rename Star Trek DS9 Star Trek Rom. And you can do that in the in the reruns and the residuals, in the syndication. Nathaniel has a good one here at 10:22.
Yeah, is it this? Lwaxana using her wig to let Odo regenerate. Yeah, that was one of the best Lwaxana moments, I would say, in all.
One of
the
best episodes of Star Trek Rom. Yep.
Star Trek Rom.
Did I really make you?
A little bit. Gosh, Libby has more here. Rom's mother, Mookie, also thinks outside the box. Maybe he's more like his mother than Quark is, after all. I think you're right about that one, Libby. Quark doesn't really have the lobes for business.
Well, he has the medium lobes for medium business, but yeah.
On the DS9 train, Ishka gets Zeki to think outside the box too. Yes. And then Phil also mentioned Imud as an example there. Larry,
we didn't say much about Voyager, so.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you're surviving a Delta Quadrant, so it's like thinking outside of the box is part of the game. But I knew people would have a million examples. That, and also, and Discovery was the same way. I was like, well, they're thinking outside the box constantly on Discovery, but I was too tired to try to think about it.
Oh my gosh. J.R. Poole says Star Trek rom-com. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
Because it usually is often when Rom's there. So, right.
Oh my gosh, Larry. How about we open up the counselor's log?
How about we do that?
This is the part of the show where we do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the psychology involved in this week's theme. And this week we're talking about thinking outside of the box, about creativity. And Larry, this is something that everyone sort of says to do. hey, why don't you kind of think outside the box on this one? But do they always support?
It'd be a little of a trite phrase, depending on
Yeah,
what's going on.
yeah, it really can. And it's also, I think it's kind of meaningless if you don't give people what they need to actually like back up what it takes to be more creative. And there's a lot of things in Star Trek that are very true to the real life science of creativity. One of the things that I talk about often on Life Support Live is having a diverse team. The more people you have on a team that come from very different perspectives, whether that is in Star Trek, different planets, different species, different cultures, or different specialties, engineering, security, command, operations, medical, science, all of this sort of stuff, that can really enhance a team's ability to form creative problem solving. I really joke all the time about the Hilton conference rooms on the Enterprise D, but Larry, those are some of my favorite scenes. I love when the whole crew is walking into the observation lounge on the Next Generation, and they're leaning into their chairs, and someone's got this great PowerPoint presentation set up to go through the problem.
Something else Star Trek pioneered. But yes.
Seriously, I am in it. I love those moments because they're really highlighting the best of what we know about teamwork. What they do in those moments, and it's not enough to have diverse perspectives on a team. Everyone on the team has to feel like everyone in that room has their back when they share an idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's really critical here. And when you're someone on a team, when there's a lot of diversity on a team, whether it's culture, age, background, specialty, but you don't feel safe.
Organic status.
Species. When we have those Martians on our teams.
Those androids.
Oh, yeah. Yep. If you don't feel like the rest of your team has your back, has your support, that it's safe for you to share different points of view, then creativity, productivity, it plummets. But what we always see in those observation room scenes is Picard, Sisko, Kirk, Janeway. We can go through our list of captains. Pike, all of them. Burnham. Hopefully Burnham. We haven't seen Captain Burnham yet. We will. Stay tuned in a couple of weeks. Not a couple of weeks. When does Discovery come out?
In November 18th.
November 18th. Stay tuned for about a month.
In the States. You know what? And I'm sorry to cut you off. We were talking about who you're talking about this list of captains.
Yeah.
In that conversation about Worf, would you say that Saru was kind of in the Worf mold until maybe he had his until he had his big pivot time, and now he's been out of his comfort zone. Now whether that's thinking out of the box, I don't know. But Saru might have been the closest thing to Worf in the way we were talking earlier.
I think you're totally right here. And Saru is someone who we see isn't 100% comfortable in all of those ways of serving as a captain, and I think for a lot of the same reasons as Worf.
In the headways he is, but when it comes to using your gut, which gets back to his Kelpianness,
and I think
until his liberation.
Worf gets there in terms of becoming more comfortable with his identity, as does Saru. They take very different paths, but they both get there, and then they're both exceptional captains when they do get there. But this is something we see all great Starfleet captains do. Is they never say, that's a dumb idea. You will never see a Starfleet captain say that in one of those meetings. They never say, why are you even bringing that up? You know, they always, whenever Worf says...
Watch the show?
Yeah. Whenever Worf says, I think we should fire photons, Picard doesn't say, Mr. Worf, that's we don't blow up the damn ship.
And when Shax says that, Freeman just ignores him.
I know. I love that moment in the finale where he's like, "It's a good thing I come from such a spiritual people, because otherwise I'd feel so mad right now."
Well, or when they're moving. It's like ever since he came back from the dead, they've like blossomed Shaq's character.
Oh
The
yeah.
bit
Oh
where he
yeah.
says, "We're gonna move these explosives to the middle of the ship because if anything's gonna blow up around here, it's gonna be because I shot it." You know?
There's a couple other things I want to highlight. So we know that that's really important to teams, and we know this is backed by a lot of real world research that you want more creativity in your team, bring people with different perspectives together, and make it feel safe for them to work together. That's a great way to nurture creativity. But Larry, one of the things we got Dune coming up, and they say fear is the mind killer. Well, there's a lot of creativity killers that we know of, and one of the things seems to be time pressure with a lot of interruptions. So if you're under the clock, if you've got time pressure, it seems like that's okay as long as you're given a lot of autonomy.
Hold a second. Give me a minute. No, go ahead.
People, this is our I feel like this is our dog and pony show, Larry. Sometimes I feel like we're doing a little vaudeville.
Okay. No. I'm just proving your point. Now you can't get back to your flow, can you?
No. What was I talking about? What was I talking? I was talking about trauma, right? No, I wasn't talking about trauma. What was I talking about? I was talking about sleep, coffee. I was talking about there's coffee in that nebula.
Tick on through the list to the recent. Yeah.
So time pressure is
being interrupted is bad for
being interrupted is really bad for creativity, especially when you're under a time crunch. Time crunches seem to be okay as long as people have a lot of autonomy to kind of work on their thing. But interruptions really kill it. And then the other thing that can really kill creativity is having... And I should say, when you're under a time pressure and you don't have the space to really work on it, people choose the simplest solution, the most easiest solution, which might not be the most creative solution. A lot of times that's okay. You don't need to have creativity all the time. But if you're trying to nurture that, you need to give people space to kind of work on these things.
Sometimes you go to spatulas. Sometimes you go to strip the hull of the outer plating.
Yes. The other thing, Larry, that seems to really kill creativity is a lot of micromanaging, a lot of close monitoring. And if we put these things together, if you want to nurture more creativity, you need to give people time and space to work on these things. Don't interrupt them. Don't closely monitor them. And encourage collaboration between people who have different perspectives. Star Trek does do that quite well. It does all of these things quite well. You never really see anyone be micromanaged in Star Trek. You see, even if you're an ensign or a captain, if you have an interesting idea, your idea is taken very seriously, and people are really given the time and space to kind of tackle these problems.
I can think of two. Yeah, there's two. I can remember Kirk saying, "Lieutenant, what does he say? Lieutenant, clear that board." And she goes, "Don't you think I'm trying to, Captain?" But also in motion picture again, I can hear in my little Bones voice McCoy leaning in and saying, "Jem, you're pushing. Your people know their jobs." Would you remember that?
Yeah.
It's when he's first clinging on to being an admiral, and being the commander, and he's all insecure about it. And before or after he gets the comeuppance about the photon versus phaser decision. But anyway, yes. I was just thinking there are some moments when people did ride people too closely, and they get called on it.
Yeah, they do, and I think that's fantastic. Yep. I think sometimes what you see in Star Trek, if I want to just criticize a little bit, sometimes they do very quickly come up with ways of bending the laws of physics with just moments where, it's this classic moment where Geordi goes, "Yeah, Data, and what we could do is invert the Thadion beam." And then you're like, how are they just so quickly coming up with ways to change the laws of physics? Sometimes
they can. With the series, and the rest of them out there aren't special enough to get a camera, so that's why. These guys, they don't just have better agents. These guys are smart.
So Yeah, it's that's the only thing I'll knock Star Trek for, but in general, I think it obeys the laws of creativity pretty well. And speaking of creativity, Larry, I would love to see what you got cooked up for us for
Oh,
today's
this is a very
K3
quick one.
factor.
Yeah, K3 factor. So, production people, hi everybody. This is diving deep into real Star Trek, but still sticking with our theme because it's what I do. And I thought there were two or three times I thought once about going outside the box to produce Star Trek. One of them was, say, I mentioned it before, like deep dumpster diving for they had no money for a lot of set decoration and they got a lot of cheap, interesting stuff, pulling industrial mailing forms and packing forms out of the dumpsters and then spray painting them, and that's your stuff on the walls in the original series. And they still would do that later on. But, that's out there. We've talked about that. One outside the box thing was when they were going to bring Star Trek back, and the networks were giving them all kinds of little namby-pamby limits. And, well, we'll do a pilot and see, or, well, we'll give you an order for 13. And Gene was like, I am not going to live on the bubble again. We revolutionized an industry. You're going to do better than this. And so they, like, why go with the 3? And then Fox was even baby network Fox wouldn't just go, oh, we'd love to have you. They were like giving them all kinds of. So they were like, no, let's just try to do the. For once, Gene and the suits got together and said, let's sell it. Let's create a syndicated market, which was totally outside the box, wasn't done. And that was a thing. And I could have gone on about that, but I think I've talked about that before. So what I went to this time was a little tiny example. Maybe I've mentioned this before, but I just love it. So the first one I have there is a gentleman next to the DS9 model.
Yeah, what a beautiful model this is. Look at the
So that's
size of
Tony
that thing.
Meininger. Not Greg Jean, but Tony Meininger built several of the models on DS9, and he built the huge DS9 station, he and his team. But there you got an idea of what the actual model looked like in scale to a person, right?
It's huge.
So there's the model, and then so as they built ships at the beginning, when they had the analog, model before CGI, when they were building ship models that are so beautiful, coming out, the original series they had budget limits, but in the movies they were building big models because after Star Wars they wanted detail and they wanted to get close. And so it was like, well, if you built a big model, it was easier to have the detail that you could like, ooh, now we can like pan across and have it look really realistic and look massive and heavy and all that. And the earlier models of the movie era were all built that way. But then when they wanted to reuse those on next gen, and so you got the 100-year-old, Miranda and the 100-year-old everything.
Excelsior all the time. Lots of Excelsiors.
But that's texture, not trivia. That's just what a great.
It's a great. No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, class it was.
Hey, I'm never complaining when I see another Excelsior class.
They changed the module and blah, blah. Okay. But as a practical thing, shooting models that huge on their station, on their setups, when you're shooting, you have to have it in scale. And the camera would have to be so far back to have any of these ships like in medium. It's why they built a 3-foot Enterprise after the big 6-foot one, because the 3-foot one was easier to play with. So especially on DS9, when they wanted to have ships docked at that station, it was easier for them to do the little kit bash ships and go get an AMT model or whatever and do that. But the problem there was when they wanted to have, especially when JG, when Martok was part of the Ark and there was like a lot of the Rotaran would be docked at the station during the war year.
All the time, yeah.
All the time. That huge. Show me the next picture just to get an idea here what I'm talking about.
I'm sure the bird of prey was to scale. It was probably small, right? It must have been really. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! That is huge.
How did Ferengis ever take over one of those?
The bird of prey is huge.
So you can see how far back you would have to get to film that to have it in scale to the station, right? I mean, the real and then you're having to mat it in. So what was amazing and was totally not planned was Gary Hutzel on visual effects. They realized they would go, the Kit Bash Army, they would go to licensing and grab models, kits out of licensing that had been sent as samples, and build those ships and kit bash those ships. And a lot of the Dominion War footage, there's now famous and people are like following those, the Curry and all those. But what a lot of people don't know what they did was show that last one. You know what made a perfect bird of prey model?
Yeah. No, I know this story.
Model?
I know this story.
They found out that the Hallmark Christmas ornament was in perfect scale to match the line. So when you see a bird of prey docked at the DS9, it's a Hallmark ornament because it was already. They could actually they could shoot it together, not have to do two different passes with all the lights and the blah blah. They could shoot one master with the one model that seemed like it was pre-built, predestined to fit the model. So again, thinking outside the box to save time and money and whatever, not just wouldn't it be cool if we just bought the ornaments and used those in our shots? That wasn't the idea. It was solving a problem, but it was very cool, and it was
brilliant.
Thinking outside the box of an ornament.
It's brilliant.
Does that fit Uncle Ollie? Did that?
Oh yeah, I love that. I knew that story, but I haven't thought about it in a long time. I think I don't know. We must have talked about that at some point, not on the show. I think you and I have spoken about it. But I love that. It also points to Larry, you can get away with a lot more stuff in standard definition than you can HD or 4K. And this is also one of the challenges of. There's so many challenges of bringing things to HD. But like matte paintings, they just look better. It's easier. Planet Hell, which was like every away mission in the Next Generation era.
Yeah.
It's just easier to make stuff look and feel real when you're dealing with standard definition. I don't think you could get away with a Hallmark ship nowadays. But it definitely could work for standard definition.
No way. I mean, it wasn't like the camera was. I mean, they did all kinds of cheats, especially the Dominion War on DS9, because they needed tons of ships in those shots, and it was time. It was money, but it was also time. And they came up with all. There's another thing where there's a couple of shots where you see like a squadron of bird of preys flying in the background in formation almost.
Yeah.
They got like a slant, a piece blue, painted something blue, and put about 5 or 6 or 8 bird of prey's Hallmark ornaments like in a line as a single thing, and then just like shot that moving or shot the camera moving across that.
Oh man, I love it.
But it was background. It was background.
Yeah.
That was the scale of the ship. I mean, you're still like, here's our frame. You're still going to only see that bird of prey is that big in the full shot. So I hear what you're saying, but it's not like they got up in the butt and panned across it, because if they did that, they would have got the big model.
They got the big model. Yeah, Larry, the only thing I love more than Star Trek is starships in Star Trek. It is I get so much joy out of
club, Ollie, because no one else feels the same.
I know. I get so much joy out of learning all this sort of stuff, seeing models, building models, but like also hearing these stories. I love hearing all these stories. Like one of my favorite ones was learning about the in Starbase, the Starbase above Earth. I forget what movie this is, but you see, it must be Star Trek 3. It's got to be.
You're talking about Space Dock? You're talking about
Space Dock. One of these little pods that goes by is just this like Gillette shaver added with a few other things. And I just love hearing those stories because it does show the creativity, the low cost and high quality way in which these model makers were able to bring these visual effects to life. Because the ultimate lesson to me about that is it's not about the money, Larry. It's about the creativity. Like,
sometimes the money is forced. The lack of money is forced.
Exactly. And so this is the thing. Like we're in the United States here. We're a couple of weeks from Halloween. My favorite Halloween costumes. I'm not good at doing this, but I love seeing it. My favorite Halloween costumes are the things that people make. People find ways of putting cardboard together in different objects, and now they're a robot, and it looks beautiful. This is also what I love about really great cosplay, is when you see people become a Borg, the objects that they use.
Well, that's what the original Borg were. The Q Borg were model kit pieces and daily hardware, stuck on a thing. I mean, that's what they were.
I love that stuff. I love hearing all about that. It's so
You know what?
cool.
CG has opened up the door for storytelling. I know, but I so miss the analog where I
Yeah,
could go
I
to say
know.
Image G,
Yeah.
and here's all the models stored, and here they're putting them on the stands. It's the moment in First Contact when they're touching the Phoenix,
Oh yeah.
and Troy says, maybe I should leave you two alone or something, or do you want to be left alone?
Yeah.
But it's not the same. I've probably said
Yeah.
this before a million times. You go now to do a visual effects interview, and it's just a bunch of people sitting in front of computers. It's not
Yeah.
the same, Captain. It's not the
It's
same.
not the same. The problem, you can't even do the mouse joke anymore because look at my mouse. It's not, it's all different now.
You can
But
try.
you can try. Hello, computer. You can't even do that because you can say hello, computer now. I can be like,
Yeah. You can program your Siri or your
yeah,
whatever.
I can just do a quick little okay, my Siri doesn't want to activate. Of course she doesn't want to activate. I can do a call Larry. I can do that, right now, and it's gonna call. Let's see if it's still listening to me. Call Larry. Whatever. Whatever. You can't do that right now.
The original revolutionary talk to the computer vocal command of Next Generation, it was like, here's another thing that shows 80 years have gone by,
Yeah.
where you had a talking computer, but you were like hitting buttons, and then the computer would give you an answer, right? Like, Rachel would do her staccato voice. But then Next Generation, and you look at the pilot as they introduce it, and I think even, is it Riker and the young officer, and he's like, but they had a protocol written in the writer's guide where it was like you had to say something like, computer, show me da 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 da, or computer, tell me computer, play me the blah blah blah, and that was supposed to be the vocal. But that lasted about half a year, and then after that they were just like, computer, blah, 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 blah,
So-
or they would just go.
Quick question, Larry. Still on the K3, coming from Linda. Does Hallmark get residuals? Glenn's theory is since Hallmark would have had to license them from Paramount, I doubt it. What's the licensing issue there? If they do,
Well, no, I mean they sell them, they get X amount of profit, and then a certain percentage of that they have to pay. There's a minimum they pay to Paramount, and then I don't know if it's like,
but to
percentage
use
of-
it, to
whatever.
use the bird of prey in that scene, do you think they had to?
some special thing? No.
Yeah.
Well, number one, nobody knew. I mean, it's kind of like, well, it's Star Trek. Like they're paying us to be able to make their ornament.
Right,
So it's
right,
our-
right.
Blah, blah.
Yeah.
No, that's like seeing graphics from the tech manual or some
Yeah.
other.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it's our thing. We're gonna go. We own it, and we're the ultimate user. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That level of no, there's no need to. But part of it was they just like visual effects guys. Hey, let's just go do this. Let's wow, you can use one of these. Great. Do you have any more of these so we don't have to spend our budget and go out and buy?
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. They would have had to gone out and buy some retail. Oh no, we've got 2 or 3 here. Great. Look, we've got 6 of them here. Great.
Yeah.
Or maybe they went out and did buy 5
Yeah.
for that master shot. But distant master shot. But no, it's like nobody cared. They're just doing their thing. Much less even knowing the story. It takes
Right.
Gary Hutzel the next year talking now it'd be like 3 days later they've got some CBS documentary camera in their face talking as they do it.
Yeah.
But back in the day it was like, did someone think to sit down with them and ask them these things later, because they're
Right.
not
Right. Yeah.
all 2 of us doing it back then.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's venture forward, Larry. That was a fun one, and you will always get me with anytime you talk starships or models.
When we get back to the chat, there's somebody has their own K3 here that I knew 20 years ago and had forgotten.
Ooh, save it.
anyway,
Save
I
it.
will. I've got it here.
Let's talk about our away mission. This is the part of the show where I give you, and you right there, right next to me, right here, this guy. I'm gonna give you an away mission here.
I'm so touched.
Larry, let's talk about it. Away mission. This is a part of the show. I give you an example of something that you might be able to do to apply what we're talking about today. Let's see. Oh, I got just a little left. Just a little left. I think we're gonna be able to make it work. There you go. I like that. All right. So Now, look, there's not a lot I can do for you. There's a lot of comments that were coming in about like the list of things that I was listing out. The list of things I was listing out. Yes, the tautology detector is at full power, folks.
As you list. Okay.
The list I had about creativity killers of not having autonomy, getting interrupted, too much of a focus on short term, time pressure without the autonomy, too much close monitoring. These are a lot of the problems of remote work right now. And a lot of the problems in the transition from people who might have been working in person to remote. There is a lot of time pressure. You might not feel autonomy. There is a lot of schedule interruptions, a lot of meetings that might happen. There's a lot of challenges to being creative. And again, like a lot of times you don't need to be creative. A lot of times the way that's been done might be just fine. But let's say you are dealing with a problem and there is no clear solution. There's a very a simple skill that we use all the time in mental health, and it's called problem solving. The problem solving skill. The way it works, it kind of ties into a lot of the model stuff we were just talking about, Larry. But what you want to do is you want to very clearly identify what's the problem. All right, the problem is we need to be able to show a bird of prey docked with DS9. And we don't have money to build a new model. All right. Then you go through the process of identifying... Or time. Yeah, you don't have the time to do it. Then you go through the process of identifying potential solutions to that. Now, here's what most people do. When we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, we're anxious, we're under time pressure, you might start listing out possible solutions, and then you already immediately start identifying why they might not work. Well, we could build a new model. No, we don't have enough money to do that. Maybe we could use an old existing model. No, they're too big. The moment you start already critiquing your ideas, it makes it harder to generate new ideas. So the key to problem solving is you give yourself permission to just generate ideas. Number one, to explore strange new ideas, to boldly go where no problem solving has gone before. So number one, not critiquing, allowing these ideas to flow. That's number one. Number two, I always recommend to people, get to 7 to 10 possible solutions. And make some of them really silly and wild, things that you would never consider. So you might say, we could borrow a ship from a different franchise that we've worked on and kind of stick that in there. We could go outside and maybe find something that from far away looks green and kind of stick that in there. What if we got one of the Hallmark bird of prey models and kind of stick that in there? You allow yourself to have really silly, wild, strange ideas that you wouldn't otherwise consider. And when you start doing that and you're not critiquing your ideas and you're trying to get to 7 to 10, you're going to come across something that you would have never considered, like maybe buying a Hallmark ornament and using that.
Or you get to something silly saying, let's go use a ship from another franchise, which you can't do.
Yeah.
But if you actually go figure out who are the model makers building things on, maybe they've got something sitting there that you can, if not modify, or you find a compromise with or something. But anyway, you open more doors and channels.
Exactly. You're opening up those frequencies. So problem solving, identifying that problem, generating that list, not critiquing it, trying to get to 7 to 10, throw in some silly stuff, and then you pick what might be the best way of solving that problem. It's a very subtle, simple thing, Larry, but usually when we're really stressed, we don't allow ourselves to go through this process.
We shut down our options before we get there.
Exactly. And it's not the 1, 2, or 3 option that we come with. It's something in the middle usually that is that real creative solution that does help us meet our goals. So that's a simple thing we can all do regardless of the situation we're in. So if you're ever stuck, I really recommend trying this out. I think this is kind of how I came across the idea to start my YouTube channel, Larry. It was through problem solving with my wife. Because the story goes, one of my friends recommended...
we will sing songs of the creation.
Great songs will be sung about the creation of the Psych Show. But my friend actually recommended, she was like, Ollie, you should do more local TV. And this is in 2014. And I was like... Rachel, who watches local TV anymore? And I was talking this over with my wife, and she's
This is your grandmother's friend that said this?
No. She's very much the same age as me. And I was talking it through with my wife, and we talked through, okay, what are more ways that you can kind of get what you want out there? And eventually we came across the YouTube channel. So, funny enough story, someone asked me a very similar question recently. They're like, how do I make it on YouTube? I'm like, don't go YouTube. YouTube is really hard. Go TikTok. That's where I would start now if I were you. And they have. And 1 year later, they're exploding. They've done really well. So, that's problem solving in action.
Yeah. I'm really trying not to show my old man on the yard screaming at the kids, but I don't. It's like, because TikTok is 15 seconds. Whatever. It's like
it's a minute, 1 minute.
Okay, you can do a minute, but just kind of figuring out how you're gonna, not only what you're gonna do in a minute, which you can do, but to do enough little minute blips to get if you have a message, or you want to even be funny, but if you want to have some kind of a message, not serious, like save the whales, but I mean, or you can. But I'm just saying, if you're trying to do what you're doing and using TikTok as a way to get to people, it feels like you have to slice that bread really thin.
You do. It's
to get it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pros and cons. It is, you have to have such an immediate human connection. You have to so quickly get to that, but that's also the downside here. A few comments right
welcome
here.
Welcome to Laird Ali's social media workshop.
I know. A couple of quick comments I want to tackle here. Excuse me. J.R. Poole says, funny that I make a few options for clients and either pick the most bland or the one the one I made as a worst option. This is one thing I want to stress. Creativity is not always the best. The creative solution is not always the best one. Sometimes the creative solution might be more money or more risk.
The story of us pitching for the first time, and we worked on all these creative ideas and all this stuff, and then I threw one, oh God, we've got a Klingon in the thing, let's do a stupid Klingon idea. Like, they've found Klingons in the and that's the one that they bought.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So it's really about sometimes creativity is helpful, and sometimes it's really not what you're going for. Charlotte says the original series, those old scientists, problem solving, filming shuttle missions every week is too expensive. Hey, I know, let's create a new technology and just beam them to the planet's surface. Case in point, right over there, a creative solution that was actually the cheaper solution, and it worked for the problem that they had,
and became a whole new paradigm unto itself.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I love that. I love that example.
Are we in hailing frequencies?
Let's open up. Let's open up those hailing frequencies. They are wide open, Larry. Larry, you said.
I have to say open frequency one more time, Captain. I'll scream. Okay.
Larry, you said there was a great mini K3 that one of our.
1050.
Yeah.
At 1050.
Okay. What's the comment? Who shared the comment?
Ian Whitcomb.
Yeah.
He's on YouTube, and said, and I knew this like in 1992 or something, but I'd forgotten, this whole thing about cetacean ops, and yet we just enjoyed it. There you go. And it was in the tech manual, but he's noting here, the cetacean ops started as a Rick Sternbach Easter egg from the anime Gunbuster, which had whales as faster-than-life navigators.
Love it.
And Rick was the one who put all the anime little in-jokes in a lot of the second and third season graphics and fourth season graphics of things, that some of them wound up being in dialogue. But now talk about HD, one of the HD things is everybody can see every tiny little Lakutogram, to the point where Mike and Denise retconned a few things out when they redid the remasters. So like, oh, that's a little too embarrassing, or oh, we don't want to license things to the. I mean, a lot of things they kept, like the West Wing characters being in a crew manifest somewhere.
Oh, that's funny.
but some things did get changed. But yeah, that's Rick Sternbach was the original big anime fan that brought all the anime references to the edges of Okudagrams.
I love it.
And even things. So thank you, Ian. Yes, there's a mini K3 for you right there.
I love it.
See what happens? It's a Okudagram in joke, and then it gets put into the tech manual as like a paragraph out of 5 million, and then 20 years later, all the fanboys and girls grow up, and it got into Cetacean Ops, got into Next Generation once, or what is it? Jordy says, "Oh, you should go see the dolphins," and it's a cut line, but the lore is out there, and the data, but the lore is out there. And by that time, here's Mike McMahon, upsetting everything, using everything, and said, "Let's have real Cetacean Ops."
I wanna speak to this point just for a moment. Glenn said my biggest creativity and productivity killer is my combination of ADHD, OCD, and CRS. So there's been a lot that's been said about mental health, mental illness, and creativity. And it's a very complicated, interesting area. For anyone who's interested, Kay Jameson, Kay Jameson, she's a brilliant psychologist who has bipolar disorder herself and is an expert in bipolar disorder. She wrote a book called Exuberance, which is about the relationship between mental illness and creativity. And it's a hot topic. There's mixed research on this. It does seem like there sometimes experiencing mental illness can give you a different perspective on things. Sometimes mood, things like depression, can make people actually come up with more creative solutions because it feels like your idea is not good enough. You spend more time thinking it through, all of that sort of stuff. So to speak to Glenn's point here, if you are able to learn how best to manage the struggles you experience, the different perspective that you also have as someone who has OCD or has ADHD is incredibly valuable. Incredibly valuable. Temple Grandin, who's an individual who has who's on the autism spectrum, is very famous for saying the world needs all types of brains. Mm-hmm. And I 100% believe that. It gets back to Star Trek, gets back to Gene Roddenberry putting a blind man as the navigator of the 1701D. This idea that we all have worth, we all have something to contribute, and our differences is what makes us unique. I firmly believe that.
Masterpiece Society.
A brilliant episode.
Yeah, is the statement on that.
Yeah, and it is about, like, I think a lesson with Geordi is Geordi finds a way to be able to see. Now, his way is different. Just like people who are blind right now, and they navigate the world differently than those who have vision. But it's in those differences that we are able to solve problems in a new way. If we're able to overcome the struggles we might have and see the value in each other and see the value in the diversity of our experiences.
There ought to be like a tagline phrase for that somehow. That whole thing about, the more diversity you have, the more combinations of possibilities.
I think combinations, many, diversity, so much. Yeah. Maybe that's a trendy way of saying it. Yeah. But this is what Charlotte's saying, neurodiversity for the win, and I 100%.
Well, and it's the trite Hollywood answer, but I always think of, and it was Hollywoodized in the telling, but the basic thrust of A Beautiful Mind, and being based on, I keep forgetting who it was really based on.
John Nash.
Yeah. Who was a Nobel winner for economics. So.
Yeah, I mean, similar story for him. The movie took a little bit of creative licenses with the way he experiences schizophrenia, and also didn't necessarily show some of the diversity in ways with his sexuality and identity. But that aside,
was it as bad as Esri counseling Garak?
Oh no.
Okay,
no,
see,
no.
there's
nothing is that bad.
That's your
but that same lesson of you have to take care of your own stuff, and if you're able to do that, there's amazing ways in which you can contribute and see things from a different perspective. So many comments. So Charlotte mentioned Jellicoe and how he kind of micromanaged, and I think it's a great example of when perhaps we don't need creativity, because Jellicoe's a very interesting figure, I think, in the next generation. He's a really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because he's like this one-off character that's become kind of a legend now. Well, aside from the whole bad joke pun meme.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even more than that, people are like transfixed. They're the same way they're kind of transfixed with Pulaski. But Jellicoe was like a one-off, like it was a two-parter. But yeah, people are fascinated by that.
Yeah, and so this gets there's research on authoritarian versus authoritative parents, and to put in more common terminology, more strict versus more permissive kind of parenting. And historically, a lot of the research showed that being a bit more flexible and a bit more permissive is a good thing. However, more recent research has shown if you live in an unsafe place, having a more strict parent is a good thing. And if we attach this to Jellicoe, or Jellicoe?
Jellicoe.
Yeah, Jello. If you attach it to him, his role was really serving in this very specific conflict. And having a more buttoned up approach might be what was needed in that situation. There's a reason why he was given the Enterprise. He had a very specific role to serve there. And so I think he's a real interesting figure and someone who would do well in times of conflict and in time.
It's kind of like, what just struck me?
Yeah.
I never thought of this. He's kind of like a Patton for the moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Where you would not want Patton slapping the mentally ill soldier's face, but out where they needed it was a life or death situation, out on the battlefield, he was perfect.
Yeah.
But but he's an HR nightmare.
Charlotte says Jellicoe is the boss we've all had and hope we never work with again.
Which is everybody remembers Jellicoe, and that's totally fair and totally accurate. But he is the one that kind of stared down the Cardassians when they needed to be stared down in that negotiation.
Yeah, yeah.
And he also put Troy back in uniform.
Yes. He's that kind of leadership is effective in certain types of situations, and you need different types of leadership in different kinds of situations. When I think of Apple Computer when Steve Jobs came back in the late in the 90s. They were making so many different devices, so many different computers. It was very unclear what the company stood for. And the very first thing he did was wiped out all these plans and said, we're going to have one laptop for consumers, one desktop for consumers, one laptop for pros, one desktop for pros. That's it. Like, kind of simplifying things. That was what was needed. And sometimes, you need different types of leadership in different types of situations. And Jellicoe was definitely someone for that moment.
Yeah.
Melanie said, off topic, but can I get some love for my 17-year-old kitty Cisco? Poor baby, he's so frail. All my cats went to the vet a couple weeks ago. $400. It's
now your bank account is frail. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of love, a lot of money to support our furry friends. Hope Cisco is doing okay, Melanie. Yeah. All our love to Cisco there. Nathaniel, go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so here's something from the chat at 10:54 from Charlotte.
Yeah.
And this is actually more especially since I feel a little bad because we skipped over Voyager but I knew there were plenty of examples there. But at 10:54, Charlotte said, another silly example, a comedy example, which she's totally right. Bride of Chaotica, and Janeway having to play along with the stupid holodeck broken file. To a little bit, it's like Bashir and Garrick having to play through the weird file on, Our Man Bashir. But exactly. Yes, man, his army of evil.
Charlotte also mentioned
the Doctor being the president of Earth and all of that, silliness.
Related to this, Charlotte also mentioned yes and see improv has to be part of Starfleet training. Good for diplomacy and creative thinking outside of the box. So yes and is it's much more commonly known now as a skill of that comes out of improv. It's about listening to your partner and building on what they're saying instead of like shooting it down. Charlotte, true story. When I did group therapy for social anxiety, one of the weeks I would have improv skills training for social anxiety. And one of the things I taught people is yes and listening to other people, building on what they're saying. And one of the things that happens with social anxiety is people get anxious and then they think more narrowly and they try to like over plan or think conversations have to go a certain way. But the thing about conversation is there's always a weird, wacky flow to them. And so yes and is such a great skill to help people with conversations, and just listening and just always building on what the other person is saying is such a great skill. It's also very important for diversity, especially when you're dealing with people from different planets, different cultures, and different backgrounds.
Yeah, different makeup colors, different wardrobe designers. That made me think that that whole thing about improv and actors and performance and all that, but the psych skill involved there, the neural processing skill before the pandemic, so that everything was kind of shut down, but in the pandemic. But the last in this whole entrepreneurial world where people are thinking outside of the box about their careers and jobs and what they can do, and the world that I've been in the last few years about taking your art or your humanities skills or your wacky, unlisted fall through the crack skills and making something of that as a career, as a business. A lot of improv people who are good at it, the yes and, have taken that and turned it into business consulting. Yeah. They go to corporations and what you just said, they do the improv approach to team building, and since industry and all that and that professional cutthroat mindset, kind of like uprooting that, maybe we would all do better as a company and as individuals if we find ways, so those really competitive cutthroat industries and careers that are marked that way, professions, it's good just to uproot some of that and get back to some humanity. But B, you could also make more money if the team was more efficient and perform that way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best things you can do for the bottom line of any business is make sure your team is functioning well. Your team likes each other. They know what everyone's role is. They have autonomy and all of that. They feel supported, all that kind of stuff. Linda asked, trying to imagine group therapy for social anxiety. Linda, it is the best way to treat social anxiety because social anxiety is inherently a social problem. And so you have to be in a social
Meaning
context.
More than one body involved.
Meaning more than two. So you can work with your therapist, but the real way to overcome a lot of these problems requires you to be in a social context, in a group context. So the real quick way, Linda, this worked is I would help people to kind of share their experiences, understand that other people have gone through the same social anxiety struggles as they have, and then I would help them to become more comfortable having these flexible conversations with each other, then public speaking exposures where they're learning how to become more comfortable in the spotlight. And then we would go outside into the real world and practice with other people. It was a ton of fun and great to see that change over time.
Sounds like driver's ed.
If driver's ed involved social anxiety. Yeah.
No, but I had an epiphany here, and that's something I hadn't thought of in ages.
Eureka! What's the epiphany?
In grad school, I had a graduate directing class.
Oh yeah.
Text. It was like it was a workshop. It was like a one-off seminar, and the guy teaching it was my graduate advisor. But the text was not a theater book at all. It was a directing, but it was a psychology book, and I cannot tell you the title of the author, but it was this is the 80s,
Hmm.
but it was all about dissolve people therapy for binds and double binds and people that would get all twisted up. And the idea was that if you would the things that therapy, they were using in therapy to melt those twists, people getting all tied up in knots, right? Or a big something they're trying to get to and they're being kept from it by something within themselves and untying. And it was like the whole idea was to apply that to actors trying to
Yeah.
get the result, being more
Yeah.
authentic and natural, or they're trying to get somewhere and they either get knotted up in themselves or they just don't see the way through. And how that whole thing of liberating and relaxing yourself, as a single person to pitch. And at the time, I was like, we're going to have a psych book for our directing, thing. But then I was like, talk about outside the box, A. But then B, it was all about whatever the procedure, wherever the methodology came from, getting to the same kind of goal. So
I mean, Larry, I think we're this
for
is
that,
case in point, right? We're talking about creativity. A lot of times, it is bringing different disciplines together, different backgrounds together. You're talking about acting, sort of with the infusion of some therapy principles, and I was just talking about therapy infused with theater principles of improv, like where this is exactly
isn't it
where
great how we took 2 hours last night to come up with that?
I love how this was all pre-planned.
Yeah.
Um, what to share where the improv experience came from? It came from a psychologist in Chicago who started working with the Second City improv group, learned those principles, and then started applying them to his group therapy process, and then started sharing that in the larger mental health world. This is exactly what Star Trek does: engineering, medical, command, science, ops, one room, work together, share your discipline, identify possible solutions, work together. This is the kind of thing that really allows these cool creative
Work
things
together.
yeah.
You know what? You know
There's
what crossed my mind last night for
huh
5 seconds?
what
Creative out of the box solutions was Kirk kidnapping the disruptor and the high advisor, and throwing them all in a cave together to show the effects of xenite gas. Oh, look, we're all being corrupted by the xenite gas. I proved it. It's a little rough around the edges, a little cowboy diplomacy there, but
Yeah, there's a great
I
long
know French.
history of theater and mental health. So there's a field of therapy called Gestalt therapy that comes out of the Gestalt movement. How the sum is greater than the what's the expression, Larry? Sum is
Bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
no, that would be who Doctor Who.
Bigger than the sum of the parts.
Yes, yes. So there's this technique called the empty chair technique, where the therapist has a client speak to someone they can't easily speak to, and pretending that they are this person in this other chair. And a lot of those kinds of technique come out of theater, going way far back. Theater has a very long history.
Inner monologue and
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. It's there's a beautiful long history of a theater and mental health interventions going back and forth. So I love that connection that actually you and I share here. There's
Alas, poor York. I knew him well. Yeah. Okay.
there's our community went off in this direction of talking
I was gonna
about
say,
Boimler and the Borg Queen and how he taught her empathy. I think Charlotte was saying, "Yali, what's up with that?" Um, and
what
Nathaniel.
today's one offline will be next year's 3-story arc. So don't knock. Yeah.
Nathaniel said maybe Borg psychology wasn't part of his graduate psychology. I think a lot of Borg psychology is real life psychology. If you look at bee psychology and how bee queens work with this larger collective, what happens if the bee is killed? sometimes how bees will adopt a new queen, sometimes they won't. Like there's a lot of interesting stuff there. So I think there is a lot of real world psychology that's related to that. That being said, I don't know what to say about the Boimler teaching the Borg empathy. I don't know. What to...
I know. I'm sitting here trying. Speaking of the chat, I was trying to, and we're coming up on it here.
We are coming up on the top of the hour here. One thing I'll say there is maybe Boimler helped the Queen to understand that empathy would be a more efficient way of assimilating other cultures. Maybe that's where he got to. I don't know, Larry.
Maybe yes and would be a better way to assimilate other cultures than going up and tubulating everybody. Okay.
Yeah, maybe. I do like Tim's statement here, tying it all back to Lower Decks. I liked it when Boimler had to think literally out of the box to defeat the Borg in the training program. Larry,
can I throw one more in here from the chat? Nathaniel at 1056.
Yeah.
Says as far as examples. This is a great one. I'd forgotten this totally. Albert Macklin, who was O'Brien's character in the Benny Russell, how about Macklin, who suggests making Russell's story a dream in order to get it published, to get him through the racism hoops, which ultimately didn't happen, at least in the scenario we saw.
But it was one of those wonderful, it's one of those wonderful writer's room solutions to these problems, and like
writer's room is another conference table observation lounge type thing where you have to, the more freedom you have, the better success you have.
One more creative solution I want to say, getting back to the design of Deep Space Nine, Rick Berman actually gave feedback to, who was it that designed the designed DS9?
Well, it was a big committee thing.
It's a big committee thing.
Berman and everybody was Rick and Mike and Ricardo Delgado and everybody that was on the art staff then. And
one of the guidelines that Rick Berman gave, or one of the feedback, was it needs to be simple enough so a child can draw it. And I think that is what great creative limitation there. Like, how can you simplify the design so that a child would be able to draw it, which would make it more iconic as well, which I think is just like a brilliant executive note there, studio note on the drawings. Rick Berman is a far more complicated character than I think the fandom give him, and in the role of Star Trek.
I would say that's true. Yeah.
Well, Larry, that sound means it's time. We've reached
for another mini K3.
No. It is time for it's that week of that part of the show where we're kind of coming to the end here. Larry, next week is going to be interesting because we have no new Star Trek, but we're gonna have we're gonna have a fun topic. We don't know what it is, but let us know in the comments below. We can go in any direction here. Let us know.
We can focus on a character. We can focus on an episode.
Yes.
Not necessarily a rewatch, but we can, watch along. But
we can do a watch along. We can do. There's so many areas. So, what are you hungry for? What do you want? Episode 72 of Life Support Live. What do you want it to focus on? Let us know in the comments. We always love getting a little creative limitation from the lifers here.
And I'll tell you what, do it quick, and then we will try to put up a vote board on our page, our Facebook page.
Yeah, I would love that.
Which, if you're not there, you should be, because there's lots of people that are on the page that never watch us live.
Yes.
So we need to. We get it both ways, coming and going.
Larry, what are you up to this week in Trekland?
Trekland, it's kind of quiet, but I'm just going to say, everybody, right now there's a sale. If you're wanting to get some Life Support Live swag or anything, go to the TeePublic store /Trekland shop. And things are on sale at 30% off sale. But also just go to my page. I've got a lot of cool stuff happening for people who sign up on the list right now. Just go and sign up at LarryNemecek.com. And I've got 2 or 3 freebies that you'll get in a row just for being there and get on the news list if you're not already. And subscribe to YouTube, please and thank you. where you're watching right now, or go over to YouTube.
Love it. And I'm the same old. Been pretty busy, so not much new stuff going on. But check out the Psych Show on YouTube. You can follow me at OliMatu. We've already got some ideas coming in. Charlotte with a deep dive into Kirk. Libby saying a watch along for Bar Association or Magnificent Ferengi, but I am biased. Raceland 53 saying, what is a Life Support Live topic next week? Whatever you want it to be. Give us some ideas. We don't know what's going on. But what we do know, Larry, is we will be back with another new episode, more celebrating Star Trek and mental health. And until then, my friends, live long and prosper.
Ah, yes. Trek well, everybody.